So delighted now to be joined by Sathill-Knocknacarra senior football manager John O'Mahony to look back on his first year in charge with Sathill-Knocknacarra, and as well as looking back on the Connacht quarter-final yesterday, where it was an emphatic victory for Moycullen over Westport. John, delighted to have you on the podcast this evening. Suppose getting into the Sathill bits first, how was it yesterday watching on Moycullen, I suppose, knowing you came so close?
Well, sure, look at it. I suppose we've had a fortnight to recover from it. It was disappointing because we felt I hadn't yet introduced the idea of a Connacht Club Championship to our team, obviously, but I had it ready in my armoury if we had won it in the dressing room to switch focus, I suppose, to a Connacht Club. And it doesn't really surprise me what happened yesterday. Moycullen are a serious outfit. We knew that when we faced them in the county final, and they proved that yesterday when they kind of decoupled easily Westport. And I suppose what that does is it shows the level of development that Moycullen have reached over the last number of years. They had the advantage of winning winning a club title a couple of years ago, but didn't get the chance to represent themselves or represent Galway and Connacht on that occasion. And obviously that was driving them. Whereas Westport, if you think about it, they had never won a senior title before. And therefore you can imagine every team talk and every motivational talk within their dressing room and during the year would be about capturing the Mayo title. And it is very hard to switch emphasis mentally with all the celebrations and so on that go on along with that. So, but having said that, I think probably Moycullen were coming back after a county final in which they probably, even by their own admission, would say that they were very lucky to get out of. I think Desi Keneally, who had an outstanding game yesterday, referred to that in his after-match interview, where he was basically saying, that they felt that they were frustrated a little bit in the county final, and I suppose that's from our point of view, that's a compliment to us in many ways. But they certainly are a serious outfit now, and what they did yesterday, not only by beating Westport, but they've installed themselves as serious contenders, obviously for the Connacht Club Championship, but maybe further afield as well. So they will be seeing this as a lift off rather than anything else, I would imagine.
When you just see Moycullen yesterday, and I suppose with your county final 110 to 19, some of the margins in them games, like the high ball from Owen Gallagher into Peter Cook, is it hard to stop thinking about them moments and the what ifs?
Well, look at the first thing is that obviously I was devastated losing the match, but devastated particularly for the players who really had grown into this championship as it was ongoing, if you like. I mean, nobody at the beginning of the championship would have probably felt that we were serious contenders. We almost were relegated in Division 2 of the league. But I knew that there was a lot of talent in there, and I suppose what I was trying to the message during the year was that they should cast off the fear factor and reveal their true talent, and it was, I suppose, very satisfactory as being in charge of the team, and watching our Sean Armstrong and Finian Hanley and Norman Costello and Des Sheeran, if you like, involved in all the coaching and training and so on, to see them coming together, or see the pieces coming together, in which we kind of maybe at times struggled to get over the line, but did get over the line, and then improved as the championship went on. And I think most people weren't giving us a chance in the county final, to be honest, if they were honest about it. And I don't blame them for that. But I knew going into that game that we had a serious chance of winning that game. And had it won, I suppose, like the goal was a freak by nature due to the weather elements, and also, it was a shot to nothing really. But that's the nature of football. And I suppose what frustrated me particularly after that goal went in is that, two key decisions went against us. When one of our players was taken out of it and advantage rule wasn't given, which we felt we deserved to to put it into extra time, because the ball had broken to us. We had 4 against 3, and we would have, we mightn't have won it in extra time, but we would have. But look, that's all gone. And on the day, I didn't want, and I don't want now either, to take away from Moycullen's victory, because Paul Clancy, the chairman of Moycullen, is a good friend of mine, was a major part of my team winning All Irelands, and I sent him a text on Saturday wishing them well. And all I would like, the way I would see it now is, the farther they go, the more it is a compliment to the push that we put them to, or the pin or their collar in the county final. Like the Galway Club Championship is a serious competition. And
did you know that, like, coming in this year, like, you obviously knew what Galway club football was, but were you surprised in one way how strong it was?
I wasn't really, because even though I haven't been involved in Galway football or club football, even in Galway, for over the years, my first club involvement was with Sathill. But sure, when you're knowing Galway and having great memories of being in Galway, I would always follow the Galway Club Championship, and so therefore, I followed the Corofin, the 4 in a row and all of that. So, the Corofins, the Mount Bellew Moylach, who, were very unfortunate last year not to win a Connacht Club Championship, and all of that. So there's, and you can throw in, like, we just struggled past Tuam in the quarter final as well. So, there's 5 or 6 serious teams there, and like, people might be saying now that because we just lost to Moycullen by a point this year, that we'll have, that we're in pole position for next year. But it doesn't work like that, because some other team can come out of the woodwork next year and whatever. Obviously, I would hope, and my hope would be for Sathill-Knocknacarra, is that those group of players who really bought into what was being done this year, and maximise their individual talents and their collective talents, that with an average age of 22, I would hope that they would go on and challenge seriously. But it's never taken as an automatic. But obviously they learned a lot in this year's campaign.
And like, as you said there, throughout the championship, you really seem to get the most out of that, so close. But what was done differently in the past? Because you look at Sathill, there was always so much talent there, and there's never any doubt about the talent. But to get the most out of that talent, what do you feel was done?
Well, there was an awful lot done at underage level over the last number of years to produce some of the players that we used this year, from their under-19 county title-winning side in the last year, and right up through. And the big advantage that I saw, that it was one of the reasons that I took the job, was that when that was being driven by players like Sean Armstrong and Finian Hanley, who played with some of those lads over the years, and Norman Costello, who had coached them at the various levels since they were in short pants, as it were. And like Des Shearden is a fantastic coach with Galway underage teams over the years as well. So that's what I felt. It didn't surprise me in a way, but obviously I didn't. It was about lifting our own standards rather than saying, well, will we beat Corofin or will we beat Moycullen or whatever. There had to be a raising of standards at senior level, because it was a major crossroads, I suppose, for Sathill, with They had a number of players, older players, veteran players who retired last year, and it was basically a young squad of an average age of about 22 years of age. So it was, I suppose that's what I have. The reason I've been in management over the years is kind of getting stuck into a job like that and trying to get a group of players. Like sometimes overall they don't realize the potential that they have, and oftentimes by developing that, which they did this year, you can beat teams that almost in some cases might be even more talented than you. But look, it remains to be seen. I suppose what's most important now is a reaction to what has happened and the disappointment of losing that final, and how that can bounce back from that.
Is there a plan to kind of meet up as a group at some stage? And
well, everyone needed a bit of time out after the county final, and that's what people are having at the minute. So no one has committed to anything yet, but it's I suppose I have communicated with, and with the people that I worked with and whatever over the last couple of weeks. But I think we need to they put enormous effort into the season, if you like, because we started last January, and because I wanted to get to know the lads, get to know the players, and so it has been a long season, really. I suppose 10 months of a season, and then you had it was the first time we had this split season where you don't have your county players until the inter-county competition is over. And obviously, thankfully, this year in Galway's case, they went right up to the All-Ireland, and we had Rob Finnerty, Cathal Sweeney, Daniel O'Flaherty, and Tom O'Callaghan were only joined us, we said, the Tuesday evening before our first championship match. And they have had a long season now. They made a huge contribution to the success of our success, if you like, to get to the county final. Rob Finnerty was our captain, and they made a huge and lifted, if you like, the standards, and integrated very well into the team in a very short space of time, because that was challenging as well, because they needed a bit of downtime after the All-Ireland, but they also put their shoulders to the wheel for us, and so there was lots of sacrifices made, if you like, by everybody all of them, because they have busy lives. Young people have busy lives, whether they're students or in careers or families, or so I think the way that they bought into this, and I think everybody enjoyed the journey. I certainly did anyway, but until 2 minutes to the final whistle in the county final.
Just on your captain, obviously this year for Sathill, Robert Finnerty, something different, I suppose, you done with him this year. Like he was at 11 at stages, and it's not something, I suppose, a lot of people in Galway would have seen him in that position. But like, you must have been delighted with his performances, because he was definitely one of the standout players throughout the club championship.
Yeah, he was. I suppose from a scoring point of view, we needed to get, our main scorers were himself, him and Tom O'Callaghan. But then we had, Cathal Sweeney coming from deep as well. And in the final there, Daniel O'Flaherty was another great prospect. Yeah, but, yes, Rob is a special talent. There's no doubt about it. And some of the attention that he got in the final and otherwise kind of showed how important he is to us. And I think during the championship he had his jersey torn off him twice during the season, so he did get close attention. But he's a tremendous ball player, if you like, and he has great vision, and he has great scoring ability. And I suppose that's where we all know the great feat of Shane Walsh in the All-Ireland for Galway this year, but there's no reason why players like Rob Finnerty won't develop into a similar situation, or Tom O'Callaghan or whatever, because that's at the end of the day, it's all about what you get on the scoreboard, and they certainly made a huge contribution to us as the year went on.
Just before we do move on, John, to talk a bit about Moycullen Westport, you mentioned there the split season, and like your players only coming back, I suppose, a few days before your first round. Would you like to see a few tweaks made for next year?
Well, I was just one of the tweaks which I think would be very good. Obviously, a county panel nowadays of 40 players or whatever, or they seem to have more than in my day in inter-county management. You basically had a panel of about 30, and then you had a kind of an outside group that you called in for trial games and A versus B games. But now there seem to be carrying, a panel of 35 to 40 players. I think what I would be saying would be that, so you don't have access, and you understand that, and that's fine. But we'll say on the weekend of a National League game for Galway, say, for instance, all that Pádraig Joyce can pick is 26 out of that panel of 40. Now, I would think that it would be good if on the weekends of those matches that there would be the league games, the club league games, which is run kind of without county players, that any player who's not in the 26 would play in those games, unless obviously they were carrying injuries or niggles or whatever, but that they would play for their club. And therefore, because they would go back into training on the Tuesday evening with the county team, then having played some football rather than sitting it out during those league games. So there might be, I think there's a few tweaks like that would help, would help them to be better county players and better club players. On weekends like that, you have 8 league games. You have even on Connacht Championship week, matches as well. That you have maybe 13 or 14 of the panel who won't be in that 26, so that they could play with their clubs maybe on those weekends or whatever. I think that would be a little tweak that would help both club and county.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see can something be tweaked there for next season. But you said there, Moycullen and Westport, that it didn't surprise you somewhat. Did the manner surprise you though? Because like that game was obviously televised. There was a lot of hype around it. A lot of Mayo underage players playing with Westport, and just the way I suppose Moycullen totally obliterated them really caught a lot of eyebrows yesterday.
Well, it might have, but it didn't with me, because I felt that Moycullen would bounce back after, after we say they seemed to be disappointed with their performance against us. So, and maybe they had targeted, I would imagine, Montpellier Moyloch all year. I mean, and they put enormous effort into, they beat them quite easily in the semi-final as well, even though they could have been caught against Clare Galway in the quarter-final. So maybe I suppose what they're striving for is a bit of consistency, and what they wanted to do yesterday was to bounce back from a county final where they didn't show the class that they have. Because in reality, when you think about it, they have 6 of the Galway panel, of the present Galway panel, the Kellys and the Owen Gallaghers and Desi Keneally's and so on. And they also have Peter Cook, who would be, and a lot of people I'm sure would hope that he will be in the panel for 2023. You have David Wynn. Is it David Wynn, I think, who was sent off yesterday?
Yeah.
He won Connacht Championships under Kevin Walsh, I think, with Galway.
Yeah.
So you have of any of the club teams in Galway at the minute, you have a serious players there, and then you have along with that, you have James McLaughlin, who's injured actually, isn't it, the young under 20 player? He's fantastic, so Moycullen are going to be around for some time to come, and I think that I have no doubt that they'll be targeting a Connacht club and beyond this year. When you look around the country and you see the various teams coming to the fore, I think Moycullen, and I'm not dismissing Strokestown, because they won their first title in, I don't know, was it
I think it was
years?
Yeah.
And they're a serious outfit as well, and they will be hoping to stay with Moycullen, because they in Roscommon they won a lot of their games, if you like, coming down the stretch. But you'd have to say that Moycullen are the favourites for the Connacht Championship, as we look at it now, and therefore once if they achieve that, then everything is possible.
You mentioned there everything's possible, and we're down now to, I think it's 16 teams left in the hunt for Andy Merrigan. Every province is at the semi-final stage, and people are kind of looking now to see who could be there. I think it's set up this year where Connacht play Munster in the semi-finals, and you look at Nemo Rangers being dumped out. Do you think it's obviously a lot away yet from an All-Ireland final, but do you think Moycullen could get there?
I do. I think they have I think they have a big squad of players. If they can come down to Castlebar without Peter Cook and without James McLaughlin and overcome, if you like, they have a serious panel of players. So yes, I think they can, and their style of play too. It's something that every club that plays against them are going to have to come to grips with. The telepathy, if you like, that the understanding they have, among themselves. For instance, like the two of the goals yesterday were just such team goals. I mean, it was almost like as if they could play. I said it about Corofin when they were winning some of those All Irelands. If you blindfolded them, then you know where everyone was running anyway. Like there were simple tap-ins, those goals, and the way that. And I suppose whoever is playing against them, they just have to be able to combat their running through the middle, really. And that's where Westport fell down yesterday, in the sense that they broke the tackle, or broke the line, and Desi Keneally got a notion of ball inside around the D, where he's lethal, and he showed what he can do with it in 50 minutes of football, scoring 10 points. So they'll hold the teams that are emerging, like the Kilcoos, the Glens now after the win against Errol Kieran, their Kilmacud Crokes. I'm glad to see one of my former clubs there at the Downs at Westmeath in all our Leinster semi-final as well. They have a fine young team coming through. It'll be interesting to see how they get on against David Brady's team. Is it Ratholt? In that semi-final. But like there's I think that it's very hard from this distance to say who's going to be the top notchers, but certainly I think that Moycullen, on the basis of what we saw yesterday and what the squad that they have, won't be out of place at the conclusion of the championship.
Is one thing they done yesterday, like we've all seen the hard running and them team moves, like you could see similarly that maybe in the Montpellier game, but they seem to be able to find, I suppose, their inside forward line a lot more. Like you talk about Desi Keneally there getting 10 points. Even Neil Walsh chipped in there with 3 or 4 points. Like they seem to be able to, I suppose, find their forward line a bit more, where maybe they have struggled in previous games to find that inside forward.
Yeah, that was the most free flowing game that they were able to maximize their execution of scores. Like we did our best to prevent that happening in the final, and for the most part we were able to do that, but it takes a huge effort and a huge tactical approach to do that. But and obviously as it gets to the later stages, you will have teams that will seriously challenge that as well. But they can do it different ways, obviously, and they have they'll be missing David Wynn now for next Sunday against Strokestown, but I presume they'll have Peter Cook back and whatever. So I think that they're well equipped, they're well equipped to deal with they're not going to be wiped out by any of the teams. They'll be contesting full out as the year goes on. So if we got over the line, we would have intended to do as well. But they're there, and I think the fact that they have won a title before this year, I think is a huge bonus for them as well, because they kind of almost felt discriminated against, albeit by the pandemic, I suppose, by not getting a chance to play in the club championship, and they're in a team on a mission. I suppose that's the best way I could put it.
And even yesterday, like David Wynn obviously getting sent off is a bit of a blown out, but the way I suppose they were able to, I suppose, have that interchangeability, like you'd seen David Wynn go into full back line, Sean Kelly back to kind of the half back line, and then even bringing Jared Davern out to midfield, it just looked a really well settled team yesterday when they read them moves.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, they can interchange, but that's what I said. I mean, they understand each other's role. I mean, Sean Kelly, I think his display against Montbellion in the semi-final was as good a display as I ever saw from any club player. The way that he cleared ball off his line and went through the middle, scored a goal, all of that. So he's equally comfortable, seemingly in lots of position. But they have a fair amount of physicality as well, and they can and do play on the edge at times as well. And David Wynn's thing yesterday, the game was over really from their point of view. It was. I'm not sure whether they're appealing it. I didn't see it. Didn't show the incident on camera anyway. So I don't know what it is, but they do play on the edge as well.
And even before they got that goal, you were kind of wondering, because I suppose Brian McDermott gets a great goal early on for Westport, and I think they go 1-2-3 ahead, but like they were on top for that period. I think it's Owen Gallagher, and he kind of plays a hand pass to Daniel Cox early on. Like Cox obviously gets a goal later on, but like it was just nearly a misjudged hand pass there where it could easily been a goal.
Yeah. Well, you see, the big thing about Moycullen is when Westport got the goal, it went a couple of points ahead. I think at that stage, did they get a point immediately after it as well? I think they didn't panic. That showed the kind of experience that they have. There was no such thing as panicking. They were patient. They were getting, like, they mind the ball very well, and they have people running off the shoulder in all directions. So they're a difficult team to stop, if you like. The way that they run and support each other, and they also mix that then with the kicking game as well. That at times when it's needed, they can do that. They may have a few weaknesses, but they haven't fully shown up yet. I know that they use the long kick out a lot. That's fine as long as they're winning that ball around the middle. But I think they prefer that the shorter kick out. But I know they're a good outfit, and they will. I would be very surprised if they don't win a Connacht championship at least, and maybe more.
Do you think Westport will be slightly disappointed though? Like, I know they're a good bit off it, but like if you still come back to it, like there is two great goal chances there after half time. Lee Keegan had one, Killian Kilkelly had one, and then there's a couple of, I suppose you could say, shots in the scoring zone that they took on that they probably will be disappointed that they missed.
They would, and if Keegan had got that goal, that was a very good save actually from the keeper. That one, and maybe you could say that was a turning point. But I don't think Westport were going to win that game yesterday anyway, to be honest. I think that Moycullen could, they could up a gear at any time that they needed to. And they were able to run in subs at the end as well, to give game time to people as well. So I think they were well in hand. I think it clearly showed that Westport just hadn't come to grips with what they needed to be. They weren't mentally ready for a Connacht Club Championship at all, really. You know, that maybe I'm being a bit cruel there, but that's the reality of it. I mean, the enormity of winning a county senior title for them was what they targeted all year, and it's very hard to switch focus in a fortnight. And the way they played yesterday, you know, give all that to me anyway. It looked like that, you know, and it doesn't mean that they won't come again in the future, because I think they had faltered at semi-final and quarter-final over the last couple of years, and people were wondering were they going to come. They've done an awful lot of work at underage level. You had Rice, Martin Connolly, their manager, would have been involved with a lot of those young players in Rice College when they got to the Hogan Cup final there a few years ago as well. So, you know, there's evidence there of the amount of work that they've done, and there's a lot of them at a similar age as well. So they're a young side, and I'm sure that they'll be hoping to or need to build on this, and maybe that the next time that they emerge, that they will put a better shape on a kind of club effort.
It does seem to be a challenge there when you mentioned, like, I suppose clubs that, I suppose, end the famine, but I suppose when you end that famine, like, how hard then do you think, like, because obviously it was a challenge for Westport to fully maybe zone in on that, I suppose, with all the energy, I suppose, you do put into finally getting over the line.
Actually, it is. It's a mental thing. I mean, I put a big store on that in sports, where you have to, you know, it's all about how you prepare yourself mentally, because all the tactical and all the other stuff comes on top of that. And if you can put lots of names on that, but the psychology of the thing, or the mental awareness of the task in front of you, and the attitude you have towards that, and trying to perfect both individually and as a team, is huge. And obviously, as I said, it's for the future for Westport, but I think it's for the present for Moycullen, and they'll what they need to do now, obviously, after yesterday's display, is not to get complacent about what's left in Connacht, but certainly Strokestown will be and in winter football, it brings teams closer together, that there might be a bit of a divide between as well. You know, if the conditions are heavy or whatever, you often notice that, and that, I suppose, that was a greater compliment to Moycullen, that we're able to overcome the elements yesterday, and you know, to have the comprehensive victory. But if you notice, a lot of games around the country in these conditions, sometimes there isn't as big a score difference as if they were playing on the top of the ground. You know,
that is something Sean Kelly actually referenced yesterday, like, where he's felt they've kind of been up and down throughout the year, where they've had a good performance and then maybe the next day it isn't so good. So you could see that's where they'll want to target now against Strokestown.
Oh, they do. They have to. I mean, they need to be there. They have to press on, and obviously, you know, eliminate the periods in games when they're you know, and against Claregalway in the quarter final, you know, against us at times and so on. They need to eliminate when they're playing second fiddle or whatever, and that's what they'll be trying to do. But I mean, they put enormous injury into their game. I mean, Sean Kelly, you know, to maintain the fitness levels that he has maintained right through the season for Galway, first of all, and now for Moycullen, is incredible. You know, it shows the modern, you know, training sciences or whatever. You know, it'll be to last right through the full season. Like, some of those lads haven't had a break, I suppose, for a couple of years now at this stage, and won't want it won't want any break for a few weeks to come either, I'm sure.
Absolutely, and just even on a couple of those Moycullen moves, like the way like they've worked, I suppose all three goals, like the hand passing out, the movement, the runners from all angles, like from your own point of view, from managing, like does that come from the training ground, or is that just literally in a game where kind of
It comes from whatever tactical system you play or whatever understanding, and the reality is that if you're playing against, you have to counteract that, and you have to not to allow that to develop, and you have to try and develop it yourself in your own team, you know, and that's what the different approaches need and take, and you know, I suppose it's at the end of the day, it's about if you need to dominate possession to impose your will on the game, and like Moycullen dominated possession in yesterday's game, and therefore had the ball, if you like. So therefore, they were able to do things like that. You know, if you were to a team that hopes to beat them, needs to deny them of that overall dominance of possession. And if you do that, which we thankfully were able to do for most of the county final, then you have it's game on, you know, like where it's down to the wire stuff, you know. But like yesterday, I don't know what the possession stats were, but I'm sure if they were looked at, you were talking about 70-30, were you know, in favour of Moycullen, like. So they were those moves and the vision that they had, if you like, for the player coming in at the other side of the goal just to tap it into an empty net. It doesn't happen by chance. It happens by moves and training and drills in training. You know, that they repeat over and over and over again. And all it needs to happen is, like in the case of scoring a goal, if you get even 2 in a game, 3 is a bonus, really, you know, which they got yesterday.
Like we talked about the strength and depth, is that where they do hold, I suppose, the Cars really in Connacht at the moment? Like is it just really that strength and depth? Like the panel, like even yesterday, Peter Cook wasn't there. James McLaughlin, it was his first game togged, and I'd say 6 or 7 months. Like
yeah.
McLaughlin, obviously, it's probably going to take time just with, I suppose, lack of training and everything. But Cook to come back in, and even some of the players that were coming on yesterday, do they have, I suppose, greater depth than?
They do. Well, sure. Look at it's you know, if you look at the you know, Moycullen, it's a commuter town, if you like, for commuter town for Galway, and you know, even look at the players. Your Owen Gallagher is a doctor in the hospital in Galway, and they have, is it Thomas Clark from Knockmore, who's a guard in Galway, you know. So Dom Connellans and his recruitment has been fairly good there, you know, last number of years. You know, and then they have whole wealth, and you have, you know, that's you get that on the edge of cities. You know, you had Bridget's in Kiltoom, you know, on the doorstep of Athlone, won an All-Ireland club title in 2013. You had Corofin on the doorstep of Galway City, won whatever the 4 or 5 there in a very short period. You have you know, Kilmacud in Dublin. You have Salthill themselves, Sathill-Knocknacarra, who won their All-Ireland club title back in 2005. Was it 2004 or 2000? I'm not sure the exact year, but back in the early noughties anyway. So, you know, I suppose this is a coming thing in the demographics of population and where they are. You have clubs in cities where and on the outskirts of cities. Clare Galway is another club that will be, I'm sure, growing enormously in the next number of years, and you know, that's contrast that, I suppose, with rural clubs, you know, as you would have in the, say, in Kerry or Mayo or those places where they're struggling for numbers, but Moycullen are a serious outfit, and they have they have plenty playing resources coming through. You know, I know that Salthill and themselves played out the West final of the under-19 final there last week as well. That was a close run encounter. So you have, you know, that's so it's up to every club to maximise the talent that's coming through.
Just John, in the Connacht Intermediate over the weekend, Dunmore bet St. Melassa Gales from Sligo. They now meet Ballyhonus. I suppose when you were back managing Galway, like, Dunmore would have been one of the stronger teams in Galway. And I suppose there's excitement now because they're playing Ballyhonus in a Connacht semi-final this weekend. And in some would say it's nearly a local derby.
It is, yeah, and isn't it a great, like, the way that the GA, one of the things, I think it was during Sean Kelly's presidency, you know, where he brought in advanced the junior and the intermediate and the senior club titles, and that all the finals are played in Croke Park and so on. It's a wonderful development because it gives, if you like, it puts clubs like Dunmore, clubs like Ballyhonus in the national picture, if you know, and that's huge. Like, and you have, you know, certainly it's you know, I know from being involved with teams over the years, you know, what it can mean. Like, everyone, obviously the county champion, the Sam Maguire and all of the rest of it is absolutely brilliant, but the closeness of the community, I suppose, and what the GA is really about in the sense of clubs and the identity of clubs. And, you know, to have that now next weekend with Ballyhonus and Dunmore, you know, neighbours, if you like. Clonfad is in there between them, but it'll be a tremendous occasion for both clubs. And, you know, Dunmore have a rich history and are, you know, thrilled to be back in senior football, and in the meantime now throw shape on the Connacht club. And Ballyhonus likewise, you know, you have veterans in there. Keith Higgins is still motoring away there, and they're that's a big occasion for them as well. So that'll be an intriguing contest at the weekend.
Yeah, junior then you have Clifton and Isla Didi. They're facing off in the Connacht semi-final as well.
Who's in the junior?
Clifton are playing Isla Didi, and
Isla Didi, yeah. Okay, yeah. Clifton have a fairly formidable outfit. Isla Didi would be the Taoiseach, former Taoiseach would have played for Isla Didi years. Remember, they were a senior team at some stage, and so they'd be on the outskirts of Castlebar. Yeah, so there'll be. I mean, what all those championships gives is an identity to the smaller clubs and smaller towns and so on, and that's fantastic too. You know, so and of course David Clifford, his year goes on and on and on, winning Kerry championships in the amalgamated senior, and for Fossa he only scored 212, I think, is it in the last day. You know, so he could be gracing Croke Park on All Ireland Junior final day, wouldn't, you know? I mean, his record of what has been won this year will never be equalled, I'd imagine. You know, you're talking about National League, All Ireland, All Star, Player of the Year, and the rest of it. You know, and a Kerry senior title and a Kerry junior title. So it's not every day that some of these talents come around. You know, but it's nice to know that he was matched point for point by Shane Walsh in the All Ireland. Anyway, we can't forget that.
Even just John, I think it's really showing the power of the club around this time of year. Like, I don't know, did you see the clip yesterday of Rory Canavan's dummy solo to the?
I was watching that match, actually. Unbelievable, and you know, I've no doubt that Errol Kieran will come through. I suppose what beat them in the end was maybe the lack of physicality against again, a more developed opponents who pushed Kilcoo all the way last year. But certainly it's worth to see those the dummy that for some of those scores yesterday and the way that they executed them. It's people say that the skills are gone out of Gaelic football, but they're certainly not gone when you see things like that.
Yeah, no, I think it's something everyone wants to keep seeing throughout the club in the future.
Yeah. So there it is.
And that's all on our show today. A massive thank you, John, for coming on to the podcast. Thanks a million.
You're very welcome, and the best of luck.